What if I told you that being alone isn't your weakness, it's your superpower? What if the very thing you've been running from, the silence, the solitude, the isolation, is actually where your strength is hiding? We live in a world addicted to noise. People talk to avoid feeling. They scroll to avoid thinking. They surround themselves with crowds just to escape themselves. But here's the truth. No one tells you. Most people fear being alone because when the world gets quiet, their demons get loud. So they stay busy, distracted, attached, dependent. But not you. You've felt it. The stillness. You've been in the room with no one but your own breath and your own thoughts. You faced nights when the phone didn't ring, when nobody showed up, when it was just you. And you didn't fall apart.
You didn't beg.
You didn't break. You sat in that silence and you stood back up. You see, real power isn't built in a crowd. It's built in the dark, when no one is clapping, and you decide to rise anyway. This is not a speech for the comfortable. This is for the quiet fighters, the ones who walk alone, the ones who feel unseen but never undone, the ones who understand that being alone is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your legend. Nobody is coming. That's not a threat, and it's not something to be afraid of. It's a truth that sets you free. Once you stop waiting for someone to show up and fix everything, something shifts inside of you. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You stop handing over the keys and you start driving, no matter how rough the road gets. When things go wrong, most people look outward. Who let me down? Who didn't support me? Who should have been there? It's human to want connection, support, backup. But relying on it as your only plan, that's how you stay stuck. That's how you stay weak. Strength starts when you realize that you are your own first line of defense. Not because you don't need people, but because you can't afford to collapse every time they're not around. Imagine you're in the middle of a storm. Wind, rain, darkness. You reach out, but no one answers. Your calls go to voicemail. The messages sit unread. What do you do then? That's the moment most people crumble. That's the moment they say, why me? But it can also be the moment you say, okay, I've got this. There's a difference between being independent and being fortified. Independence is being able to do things for yourself. Fortification is about being prepared mentally, emotionally, physically for the chaos of life, the unplanned, the heartbreak, the betrayal, the failure. It's about building yourself like a fortress, not a fragile structure that depends on everything going right. This isn't about becoming cold. It's not about pushing people away or refusing help. It's about knowing that your survival, your success, your sanity, those belong to you, and they are your responsibility, not someone else's. Think about the people who inspire you most. The ones who've overcome serious obstacles. They didn't do it because they had perfect support systems. Many of them didn't have any. They did it because they looked at the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, and decided they wouldn't wait for someone to rescue them. They became their own rescue. Being your first line of defense means you stop outsourcing your emotional stability. You stop saying, I'll be okay once they apologize, or I'll move on when someone validates me. No, you build the skills to process it, to navigate it, to stand firm even when the wind blows hardest. You develop your mindset like a muscle. You train it with every challenge. When you get rejected, you don't spiral, you observe. When you fail, you don't collapse, you assess. When you feel alone, you don't panic, you breathe and adapt. That's what real strength looks like. Not dramatic, not flashy, just solid, quiet, consistent. You start building routines that protect you. Sleep, movement, focus. You don't wait to feel motivated. You don't wait for a pep talk. You move whether it feels good or not, because your survival doesn't depend on feelings. It depends on commitment. You build emotional intelligence. You become the kind of person who can sit with discomfort without needing to numb it, who can hear criticism without crumbling, who can face loss without losing themselves. It's not about pretending you're fine. It's about knowing you can handle it, even when you're not. The most dangerous thing you can do is become dependent on someone else to stabilize you. It's a setup for disappointment. People will leave, they'll change, they'll mess up, Not because they're bad, because they're human. And if your strength is based on something that fragile, you'll never feel safe. When you're your first line of defense, you're not unshakable because bad things stop happening. You're unshakable because you stop falling apart. Every time they do, you stop blaming and you start adapting. You stop pleading and you start strategizing. You stop waiting and you start moving. And here's what's ironic. Once you become that person, you actually attract better people. People who see your strength, not your desperation. People who add to your life, not become your oxygen. You stop forming relationships based on fear, neediness, or dependency, and you start connecting from a place of power. The version of you who can't be shaken by loneliness, who doesn't fall apart when things go quiet, that version is dangerous, not in the sense of hurting anyone, but in the sense that no one can control you anymore. You're not manipulated by guilt. You're not derailed by abandonment. You're not baited by chaos. You've learned to sit with yourself. And in doing that, you've found your core. You've learned to protect it, not with walls, but with wisdom. So yes, connection is beautiful. Love is powerful. Community is important. But you are your first line of defense, not because you have to be, but because when you choose to be, life stops owning you. You stop just surviving. You start commanding. You start building. And no matter what comes, you handle it because you've trained for it, because you're ready, because when the storm hits, you don't panic, you rise. Pain doesn't ask for permission before it enters your life. It doesn't knock on the door politely. It kicks it in, uninvited, unapologetic, and often when you least expect it. And when it shows up, everything stops. Your breath shortens, your world narrows, and nothing feels certain anymore. But if you can look past the fear, past the heartbreak, past the rawness of it all, you'll find that pain is more than just suffering. It's instruction, it's information. It's the voice that shows up when you've ignored every other signal. It teaches you in ways comfort never will. Pain strips away the unnecessary. It removes the fake, the shallow, the performative. When you're in pain, the masks come off. You learn who you really are, not the version you show others, but the one that survives the storm. You see what you're made of when nothing is left to protect you. That's the truth most people run from. But you, if you face it, you'll grow in ways most people never will. There's a reason people remember their hardest moments more than their easiest ones. Because pain doesn't just leave a scar, it leaves a lesson. Every time you've been betrayed, you learned about trust. Every time you failed, you learned about persistence. Every time you were hurt, you learned about boundaries, about self-worth, about what you will no longer tolerate. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it's honest. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't lie to you. It shows you exactly where the cracks are, so you can fix them before they destroy you. It doesn't matter how strong you look on the outside. If you're not fortified on the inside, the right kind of pain will collapse you. That's not weakness. That's just how we're built. But it becomes weakness if you keep avoiding it instead of facing it. Pain demands confrontation. You either meet it head on or you spend your life rearranging your world just to avoid feeling it again. Think about it. How many choices have you made? Not because you wanted something, but because you were afraid of feeling pain, afraid of rejection, so you don't speak up, afraid of failure, so you don't try, afraid of abandonment, so you settle for less. Pain doesn't just happen to us. It shapes our behavior. And unless you confront it, it will quietly run your life. But here's the good news. Pain can also shape you into something extraordinary. It can make you sharper, wiser, more compassionate, more strategic. If you allow it, pain becomes your refinement process. Like fire to steel, it tests you, burns off what's weak, and leaves behind something stronger. When you've walked through real pain, you stop being shaken by the little things. You stop wasting time on shallow pursuits. You stop needing constant approval. You stop performing, because once you've met the deepest parts of yourself, there's a kind of self-respect that starts to grow. You realize how much you've endured, and you carry that knowledge like armor, quiet, but impenetrable. Pain also teaches you empathy. When you've been cracked open, you see others differently. You recognize the signs, you hear what they're not saying, That doesn't mean you let people use you, but it means you move through the world with more grace, more depth. You understand that strength isn't about pretending to be untouched. It's about being deeply touched and still choosing to keep going. And the truth is, pain is not permanent. It feels like it is. When you're in it, it wraps around you like fog, like it's never going to end. But it does. What stays is the version of you that comes out on the other side. That version, that's your next level. And you don't get to meet that version of yourself if you hide from the hard things. There will be moments when you feel like breaking, like you've hit your threshold. And maybe you do break, but breaking is not the same as being broken. One is transformation. The other is surrender. You are allowed to fall apart. What matters is what you do after. The people who rise, they're not the ones who avoid pain. They're the ones who respect it, who listen to it, who take the lessons, even when it's hard. They use the weight of it to grow stronger legs, stronger lungs, a stronger heart. Pain becomes the resistance that makes them resilient. And once you've walked through enough of it, pain stops being something you fear. You don't go looking for it, but you're not afraid of it anymore. You've trained with it. You know its rhythm. You've been knocked down and gotten back up enough times to trust that you can. You become less reactive, less impulsive. You stop needing to escape every uncomfortable emotion. You sit with it. You ask it what it's here to teach you, and then you let it leave when it's done. Because pain always leaves something behind. Sometimes it's wisdom, sometimes it's fire, sometimes it's peace. But it always gives you something if you're brave enough to face it fully. So when it comes, whether it's loss, failure, betrayal, fear, don't numb it. Don't run. Don't mask it with distractions. Get still. Get clear. Listen. There is a lesson in it. There is growth in it. There is power in it. And maybe, just maybe, the most painful moments of your life won't be the ones that destroyed you. Maybe they'll be the ones that rebuilt you. Power is quiet. It's not found in the noise of the crowd, in the applause, or in the number of people standing next to you. True power, real, grounded, undeniable strength often reveals itself when no one else is around. When you stand alone, with no hand to hold, no one to cheer you on, no one to validate your choices or co-sign your confidence, and you still refuse to back down. We're taught from an early age that there's safety in numbers, that if enough people agree with us, if enough people follow us, if we're liked enough, loved enough, accepted enough, then we matter. That somehow the measure of our worth is tied to how full the room is when we speak. But what happens when the room is empty? What happens when the phone goes silent, the support dries up, and all that's left is your own reflection staring back at you? That's when you find out who you are. See, people often confuse visibility with value. They think being seen by many makes them significant, but being seen doesn't mean you're strong. Being followed doesn't mean you're in control. And being surrounded doesn't mean you're supported. There are people with crowds who still feel alone. People with fans who still feel empty. People with constant company who don't feel understood. It's easy to believe in yourself when others believe in you first. But when it's just you, when the lights are off, and there's no audience clapping, no one validating your decisions, that's when real power is built. It's in the silence, in the discipline, in the private moments where you choose not to give up, even when nobody would know if you did. And the truth is, not everyone can handle being alone. It exposes things. It makes you confront what you've avoided. There's no one to distract you from your fears or doubts, your inner dialogue. That's why most people run from solitude. They don't want the truth. They want noise. They want company. Even if it's toxic, they want distraction, even if it costs them peace. But you, if you can learn to be alone and still be solid, you become something different, something rare. You stop needing permission to move forward. You stop waiting for applause before you take the next step. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable or diluting your ideas just to keep the peace. When you don't need the crowd, you're free to lead without compromise. And leadership often means walking alone first. It means being misunderstood, judged, even mocked, because most people don't understand courage when it doesn't look like what they're used to. Sometimes the reason you're alone is because you outgrew the noise. You stopped chasing the things everyone else is chasing. You stopped needing to explain yourself. And in doing that, you stepped away from the crowd. Not because you were weak, but because you were focused. And being focused can be isolating. Clarity is lonely. Growth is uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that loneliness, that's the price of becoming who you're meant to be. Because evolution doesn't happen in the crowd. It happens in the quiet, in the hard decisions, in the unseen effort, in the moments where your only motivation is you. When you walk alone, you're forced to become your own compass. You stop looking for outside direction and start trusting your gut. You listen to your intuition. You sharpen it. And eventually you reach a point where you don't need constant feedback or validation. You know what's right. You know what's yours. And you know where you're going. There's something unshakable about a person who doesn't need to be surrounded to feel secure. They carry their own peace, their own fire, their own clarity. And you can't manipulate someone like that. You can't threaten them with isolation because they've already made peace with it. You can't control them with silence because they've already learned how to grow in it. And ironically, the moment you no longer need the crowd is when people start paying attention, not because you chased them, but because you became something magnetic. Because strength, real strength, is always attractive. Not the kind that shouts or boasts or demands attention, but the kind that walks in the room quietly and still shifts the energy. That kind of power is earned. And it's usually earned in the times no one sees. You don't need a million people to believe in you. You just need one, and it better be you. You don't need constant reassurance. You need courage. You don't need everyone to understand your path. You need to stay committed to walking it. You don't need noise. You need conviction. So don't fear walking alone. Don't interpret solitude as failure. Don't think that just because you're not surrounded, you're not on the right track. Some of the greatest breakthroughs happen in the absence of a crowd. When you're alone, your focus sharpens, your thoughts deepen, your instincts strengthen. And from that stillness, something powerful begins to build. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's real. And it lasts. Let others chase popularity. Let them seek validation. Let them build their lives around applause. Yeah. You build your life on purpose, on vision, on values that don't bend based on who's watching. And in doing that, you become something the crowd will one day turn to. Not because you needed them, but because they needed you. No one is born resilient. It's not in your bloodline. It's not passed down like a family heirloom. You don't inherit resilience like eye color or height. You build it, you forge it, one experience at a time, one setback at a time, one moment where you wanted to quit but didn't. People look at others who seem unshakable and assume they've always been that way, as if strength is a natural gift they were just lucky to receive. But what they're seeing is the result of quiet battles, of private pain, of days when that person was barely holding on, but chose to keep showing up anyway. Resilience isn't a personality trait. It's a practice. It starts with the decision that you will not be destroyed by what happens to you. That even when you fall apart, you will not stay broken. That no matter how much it hurts, how long it takes, or how tired you feel, you will find a way to get back up. That's where resilience lives, not in perfection, but in persistence. There's this myth that strong people don't feel fear, doubt, or pain, that they're always confident, always in control. The truth is, resilient people feel it all, but they don't let those emotions define their choices. They move with fear, they act with doubt, they carry the pain, but they carry it forward. Every time you're tested, every time life pushes you to your limit, you're being trained, not punished, trained. There's a big difference. The challenges aren't there to crush you. They're there to sharpen you, to make you question what you believe, what you value, and who you are when nothing is easy. You build resilience in the middle of the mess, in the days that don't go as planned, in the moments when the weight feels too heavy, in the silence when no one is cheering for you and you're not sure it's worth it, but you show up anyway. That's where it's built. Quietly, privately, and most of all, consistently. Consistency is the heartbeat of resilience. It's not about having one good day where you feel strong and motivated. It's about the days when you don't, the days when you drag yourself through the motions, when the only win is that you didn't give up. That kind of consistency is what toughens you up from the inside out. You don't always need to feel good. You just need to be committed. Discipline will carry you where motivation never could. Because motivation is a wave. It rises and falls. Discipline is a choice. You make it even when you're exhausted, heartbroken, discouraged, or uncertain. And the more you make that choice, the stronger your resilience becomes. It compounds, like interest. Small deposits every day that build over time into something unshakable. You can't hack your way to resilience. There are no shortcuts, no quick fixes. You have to earn it. And you earn it by choosing to stay in the fight, even when walking away seems easier. You earn it by taking responsibility for your reactions, your growth, your healing, not waiting for someone else to save you, not blaming everyone around you, but owning your path even when it's hard. And it will be hard. Growth always is. Building anything that lasts is supposed to stretch you. You don't become resilient through ease. You become resilient through pressure, through repetition, through setbacks that teach you how to bend without breaking. There's a certain pride that comes from knowing you've built yourself, that your strength wasn't handed to you, that you weren't coddled, pampered, or protected from every hard thing. You faced it. You adapted. You figured it out. That's the kind of confidence no one can give you and no one can take away. And here's something no one tells you. Resilience isn't just about enduring pain. It's about transforming it, taking the worst moments and turning them into wisdom, taking rejection and using it to clarify your direction, taking failure and using it to strengthen your foundation. Resilience doesn't mean you never fall. It means you stop falling the same way. It's also about learning to trust yourself, not in the sense that you'll never make mistakes, but in the sense that no matter what happens, you'll handle it. You may not have all the answers. You may still be figuring it out, but deep down, you know you've survived every bad day so far. You're still here, still breathing, still fighting. That matters. Sometimes resilience looks like crushing your goals. Other times it looks like just getting out of bed. And both are valid. Both are part of the process. Don't discount the small wins, the quiet victories. They are the bricks that build your foundation. And let's be honest, there will be times you feel like you're going backwards, like you're failing, like all your effort isn't making a difference. That's normal. Progress isn't always linear. Sometimes it loops. Sometimes you have to revisit old pain to finally release it. Sometimes you have to break down to break through. What matters most is that you don't quit on yourself, that you don't mistake struggle for weakness, that you don't let the hard moments convince you that you're not strong enough. You are. You've always been. The strength is already there. It just needs to be activated. And that only happens when you show up, not once, not when it's easy, but over and over again. Resilience is built, and you're building it every time you choose not to give up. There's a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to be seen or heard to be real. That kind of strength lives in silence. It grows in stillness. And in a world that never stops moving, that strength is becoming more rare, more misunderstood, but more powerful than ever. We live in an age of noise. Everyone's broadcasting, posting, talking, reacting. There's this constant pressure to say something, to show something, to be on all the time. But real power doesn't always perform. Sometimes it observes. Sometimes it listens. Sometimes it waits. We're taught that action means progress, and that silence means passivity. But silence isn't weakness, it's discipline. Stillness isn't laziness, it's strategy. The ability to sit with yourself, to think deeply before reacting, to hold your ground when everyone else is scrambling. That's not just emotional control, that's tactical intelligence. Most people can't handle silence. It makes them anxious. It forces them to hear their own thoughts. It exposes the truth behind the distractions. So they fill the space with noise, anything to avoid facing what's inside. But what they don't realize is silence is where clarity lives. It's where your instincts speak. It's where truth has room to rise to the surface, unclouded by chaos. When you train yourself to be still, you don't just calm your body, you sharpen your mind. You learn how to become an observer instead of a reactor. And the one who observes always has the upper hand. Because while others are running on emotion, you're collecting data. While they're reacting to every trigger, you're watching patterns. While they're burning out from impulsive decisions, you're planning your next move. Quietly, carefully, deliberately. Stillness is the difference between responding and reacting. One is conscious, the other is chaos. Most people react fast, loud, emotional. It feels powerful, but it's actually a loss of control. Responding takes more discipline. It means you don't let the situation dictate your energy. You choose your timing, you choose your words, you choose your next step. And that choice, that pause before action, is where your power lives. There's a reason the most dangerous people in any room are usually the quietest. They're not proving anything. They're not seeking attention. They don't need validation. They're watching, listening, reading everything because they know something others haven't figured out yet. Power doesn't come from volume. It comes from presence, from awareness, from the ability to stay grounded when everyone else is spinning. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the right thing at the right time. It's about discipline over impulse, patience over panic, control over chaos. And that kind of strategy is built in solitude, not when the pressure is low, but when it's high, when everything in you wants to react and you choose to breathe instead. In stillness, you get to know yourself, not the version of you that performs for the world, but the one who exists without the noise. That's where you build emotional resilience. When you learn to sit with discomfort, to face uncertainty, to ask hard questions, and not run from the answers. Most people never do that. They hide in distractions. But you sit still long enough to hear the truth. And truth, even when it hurts, gives you power. Because once you know who you are, what you value, what you're capable of, what you'll stand for, you become unshakable. You stop chasing approval. You stop getting baited by drama. You stop needing to prove your worth. Your energy stops leaking. And suddenly, you're not exhausted anymore. You're focused, intentional, tactical. And there's something deeply threatening about a person who can stay still under pressure, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't rush. Because most people expect chaos. They expect people to fall apart when things go wrong. But stillness in the face of pressure, that's power most people don't understand. And when they don't understand it, they can't predict it. And when they can't predict you, they can't control you. There's also a freedom that comes with silence. When you're not always speaking, you're not always explaining. You don't have to justify your moves. You don't have to overshare your plans. You let your results speak. You move in silence and let your success make the noise. Because the louder your mouth, the more you give away, the louder your energy, the easier it is to read you, to manipulate you, to control your tempo. But when you move with stillness, you control the pace, you control the tone, you own the room without needing to dominate it. Silence also protects your peace. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every insult needs a comeback. Not every fight is worth your energy. And when you understand your worth, when you know your power, you don't spend it recklessly. You conserve it, you protect it, and you channel it where it matters most. Some of your greatest growth will come in silence. Some of your deepest healing will come in stillness. Not when you're fighting, not when you're proving, but when you're quiet enough to finally hear yourself again. When you finally stop running from the mirror and start learning from it. Stillness doesn't mean inaction. It means control. It means knowing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait, watch, breathe, reset, and then move calm, clear, and unstoppable. So while the world keeps racing, shouting, scrambling, let them chill, stay still, stay silent, stay sharp. Because when your moment comes, you won't need to raise your voice to be heard. Your presence will say everything. You don't need noise to be powerful. You don't need a crowd to feel worthy. You don't need comfort to stay standing. And you don't need permission to rise. You have already walked through storms that would have drowned others. You've carried weight in silence that no one ever saw. You've made choices, hard, painful, necessary, that carved strength into your bones. And you're still here. That is not weakness. That is not loneliness. That is not defeat. That is proof. Proof that you are built different. Proof that your power doesn't come from what surrounds you. It comes from what lives within you. So let the world misunderstand you. Let them underestimate you. Let them think silence means soft, or stillness means stagnant. They'll see soon enough, because while they were busy chasing validation, you were building something unshakable, something quiet, something real. You alone does not mean broken. Alone does not mean lost. Alone means focused. Alone means forged. Alone means ready. You are not just surviving. You are rising, and you are unbreakable.